All right, I was at the AAA Kick-off Classic this past weekend, watching MHA teams in action against some of the other notable AAA programs in and out of state. I wanted to get on here and share some of my thoughts, a couple standout players, some of my biggest takeaways, things to keep an eye on as the fall progresses. I don't have much of a show sheet. I didn't write a lot of stuff down, so I might be kind of scatterbrained all over the place with this particular episode. But like I said, I wanted to get on here, share my thoughts, some big takeaways, and just kind of get it out there. There's also a blog I published on Monday. I think it was Monday. That's available on the website, pdspicks.com. The link to that blog is in the description below if you want to check that out. And maybe the blog might even cover some things that I don't touch on or forget here on the pod as well. So new season, new people coming to the program. If you're new to the pod, welcome. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button for me below. That helps me too. Hockey's expensive. Everyone's out to get in your pockets, man. Tournament teams, advisors, live barn, you name it. Every aspect of our game, someone's out to try and get $1 from you. But mine is completely free. I don't charge you a dime. So all I ask, like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And then the same thing, too, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. So let's talk some hockey. So as I mentioned, I was in Grand Rapids Friday watching some of the AAA action at Southside Arena, checking out the MHA teams. Was it 18U Red, 16U Royal, and 15 only Black? And this was kind of an interesting show, a difficult one, I think, for a lot of these MHA teams. Talking with, I think it was Coach JJ Price of the 15s, and he was saying, this is historically our toughest event of the fall calendar. It's an event that MHA, I think, has been a part of since the tournament's inception, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And he said, historically, this is our toughest event of the fall because you're putting teams together who have literally had one practice, and it was 24 hours prior to game time, and you're just shoveling them out onto the ice and expecting them to play at a pretty high level, playing against teams like Fox Motors, Pittsburgh Vengeance, things like that, who have been practicing and skating together now for the better part of a month in preparation for this. And so you got a pickup team with minimal structure at this point, playing against well-rounded, well-versed, well-practiced AAA teams, and to play at that level it is obviously a huge challenge. But in my eyes, it's kind of a win-win situation for a lot of these MHA teams because, if you go out and you show well, that's pretty telling, right? You have a strong showing against teams who have been practicing and playing together for long stretches. If you show poorly and the score doesn't quite go your way, but you're working hard and you're competing, you can leave that game, even if it is a 6-1 or 7-1 final. You can still walk away feeling pretty good that, hey, we competed, we worked hard. There's things to clean up, but can still feel good about the effort and just kind of the compete level overall. So in my eyes, this event, albeit the timing is unfortunate that it's right out of the gate and you don't have a lot of prep time to get ready for it, is kind of a win-win situation, I think, for a team like MHA, and I'd probably even extend that to like the MDHL when they do their tournaments as well, because you got I call it a hodgepodge, guys pulled from all over playing together, kind of last minute and things like that, with not a lot of prep or practice time. So I'll start with the 18s. 18U Red, 2-2 on the weekend. Like I said, I feel like you got to feel pretty good about that. This is an 18U team that I think had a lot of carryover from the year before. I know Aiden Cook was this team's leading scorer last fall as a junior, and obviously he returns and should be one of the top prospects in Michigan high school hockey this season. Was an NAHL draft pick earlier this spring, and obviously a top talent there. Won a state title, going to be one of the top prospects in the sport and one to watch this fall. So having him is obviously a nice weapon. You add him in the mix with a guy like Ben Milak out of Forest Hill Central, who this time last year was playing junior hockey in the NCDC and has that kind of feather in his cap already. And so to get him back in the high school hockey circles last year was a bit of a victory there in a way for Bill McSween and the Forest Hill Central Rangers, getting him back. Obviously, if you can pursue junior hockey and that's an option, especially at the NCDC level, by all means do it. But to have Milak back in the high school realm, even if it's just for the fall or even a portion of the high school hockey season would be a huge win. So super talented player there as well. And to me is a man child out there. I mean, he's all of 6'2", built like a house, skates well, heavy on pucks. Ben Milak is another top prospect in high school hockey that we're going to need to keep an eye on as the season approaches. But there was one name that really stood out to me. I pumped him here in the title of the video, and then highlighted him quite a bit in the blog on pdspicks.com. Donovan Durbin out of Trenton to me. A junior last year, comes back for his senior year with Trenton, and I think is primed for a huge year. He stood out to me multiple times in that game Friday against Fox Motors. High energy plays, first guy into the zone on a forecheck, hard on pucks, heavy along the walls, winning puck battles, generating scoring opportunities, not just for himself, but others. He scored the lone goal. What was his final score of that game against Fox? 6-1. But it was closer. The score doesn't indicate compete level and up and down the ice and things like that. The score is the score. I'm not debating that at all. But sitting there watching it, it didn't feel like a 6-1 game. Good pace, up and down both ways. It didn't feel like the ice was tilted or anything like that. But Durbin, to me, was a guy who stood out on several occasions making plays, and he scored the lone goal there for MHA Red as well, and had opportunities to pump a couple more into the net. And so when I look at this roster and you see names like Aiden Cook and Ben Milak and some of these others, and Durbin is the one jumping out at you, I think that's pretty telling, right? And not that Milak or Cook or anyone else had bad games necessarily. It was just that with all that talent on the ice, Durbin was the one catching your attention. I think that's really indicative and a sign of what could be to come. And so I watched that Friday, and then as the weekend unfolds, Durbin ends up being your leading scorer on the team with 6 goals and 7 points on the weekend. And I believe the highest scoring player in the showcase, regardless of age group. And again, it's not about stats to me. It's not, I hear this a lot during the regular season. So-and-so has more goals. So-and-so has more points. I don't care about stat stuffers and some of that stuff. To me, it's the little things Durbin was doing in his game that added up to that final stat line throughout the weekend. Like I said, a good F1 on a forecheck, good energy coming back on a back check, making the 3 to 6 foot passes to open guys in space, and then capitalizing on opportunities when he got them, or making the most of them too. So that to me matters more than the final stat line at the end of the weekend. But when you have that plus the stat line, it paints a very telling picture. So Donovan Durbin to me was a name that really resonated coming out of the weekend, and kind of one of my biggest takeaways from the AAA Kickoff Classic this weekend. Another guy I liked a lot on the back end, and it's just because I've just seen his high school career progress over the last 3 years, was Jake Rao on the back end, defenseman for, I believe it's the Tri-Valley Thunder now. Was the Bay Area Thunder and the Tri-Valley Titans, I think, and the two co-opted into one. He's a part of that co-op, obviously. Kid out of Pinconning, I believe. So Jake Rao, I just liked the progression I've seen out of him in the last 3 years working with MHA. He came in as a freshman, I believe out of Little Caesars before playing high school hockey. And so my first look at him was as a freshman at the MHA showcase. Um, Still very young, still developing, still growing. You could see that in his game. And then last year progressed. And I think that first year he might have even been on the tier 2 team. I'm not positive. I would have to go back and check. But this is a kid who's progressed, I think, from that tier 2 team with the MHA to now being on the top team, MHA Red, with the 18U group as a junior. So you've just gotten to see his youth hockey career progress over the last couple of years, and it's been cool to see because he was a small, bit undersized defenseman as a freshman, started to grow and fill out a little bit as a sophomore, and now as a junior, he's all of 6'2", 6'3", skates pretty well, handles pucks, moves the play along, and things like that. So the defensive unit as a whole, I thought, has had some growing pains over the weekend. But, Rao, I thought, had some nice moments in that first game against Fox Motors. Just, good regroups, good deceptive moves with a guy on him and things like that to shake a defender and then move the puck up the ice. So a couple standouts there for you, I think, from that 18U Red group. And then Sabala was in net, Vinny Sabala out of Heartland. And talking with Coach Ray Bryce after the game, he said we didn't do the kid any favors. And not that they left him out high and dry on that 6-1 final, but Fox Motors was just a lot more polished. There were in zone goals that were generated off of in zone plays, low to high type rotations in the offensive zone for Fox. Guy comes out of the corner, moves it up to the defenseman with a quick shot on net, and it ends up going in through a screen or a tip or something like that. Just more structured hockey. And for an MHA Red team that's been, put together and thrown to the fire, defensive rotations and those little effort plays off of face-offs and things like that, that's where you're lacking a little bit and where you got to develop and grow as a unit, as a team. And so I thought a lot of Fox's offense was generated from just good structured hockey. And so you're going to catch a team like MHA in some of those defensive zone breakdowns and things like that. And so, that was kind of my big takeaway there. So, the score is not necessarily indicative, and that's okay regardless. But, like I said, talking with Coach Ray Bryce, he felt all of those goals were correctable, fixable. It wasn't a matter of one team being better than the other. It's just coaching them up and being a little more prepared in moments like that. And obviously, as the weekend progressed, it improved. Let me pop into their scores. The next day, I should say, they beat Pittsburgh Vengeance 5-4. And I want to say they were down 4-1, 4-0 in that game at one point, and ripped off 4 or 5 straight goals. Now, let's see if I can pull up the box score here. What was it? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they were down 4-0, and Milak with a pair of goals, Grandin Eccles with a goal, 2 goals. So 2 goals from Milak and Eccles in the third period. Eccles scoring a power play goal with under a minute to play to tie it, and then they win in a shootout. So you like to see that. That's compete level right there. That's just competing and hanging in there in a tough spot too. So I like that. Let me pop into some of these other scores real quick as I kind of scoreboard watch here. They beat Belle Tire later that day too, 4-1. Belle Tire, I'd kind of have to look. I haven't looked at their roster or dove too much into the AAA circles just yet. Just to look at rosters and who's where and who's playing where, I should say. And then on the finale there Sunday, they lost to Team Minnesota 9-6. A lot of offense in that one. Okay, let me shift gears here a little bit. 16s. I probably need to pull up let's see if I can pull up my notes here. If I can get to it. As I'm doing this on the fly. Here we go. Where are my 16s notes? Here we go. Okay. So the 16s, it was my understanding out of the I missed their first game Friday morning. It was like an 8:30 puck drop or something like that. by all accounts, didn't miss much, I don't think, based on the look of it. They lost a tough one there, 9-0 to Fox Motors out of the gate. Early morning game, haven't skated together. I think they only had one goalie on hand. I think, what was it, Charles Finch was banged up a little bit and didn't go that Friday morning either. So limited resources, limited opportunities there. Not a great showing out of the gate, but I did catch them in the second game on Friday when they played the Phantoms. And bounced back pretty good. Like I said, I didn't see that first game, so I didn't have anything to compare or contrast it to. But compete level was there for Friday afternoon. I liked it. It wasn't the cleanest, it wasn't the prettiest, but the effort was there. And I felt pretty good about it watching it from the stands. There was one kid that stood out to me, and again, not because it was pretty or flashy or anything like that, but it was just good hard work and great effort. Was Traverse City Central's Xander Foldman, and the guy got rewarded with a pair of goals right in I think it was in the first period, yeah, and put MHA up 3-0 on the Phantoms. And Foldman, this is a guy who I believe got cut from the MDHL 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now he's a top producer for MHA Royal on the AAA level, right? This is Fox Motors. Phantoms. Who else was in this mix? Let me pull this up real quick. Fox, Phantoms, Compuware, and Team Minnesota. And you got Foldman, who's a top producer in this mix. So great showing by him. And like I said, just making some of those effort, kind of ugly plays, getting things done. And then to see him get rewarded with a couple greasy goals was nice, and could have had more. Had multiple opportunities as that game wore on. Up 3-0 early. That lead slowly evaporated as it wore on. There was a ice cut at the halfway point of the second period, and the Phantoms came out in that second half and looked like a different team and just a lot cleaner, crisper, and was able to dig themselves out of that 3-goal deficit, and then scored the game-winning goal here. Scored 4 goals unanswered, and then hung on to a 4-3 lead throughout the third period. So I mentioned Foldman. There was a couple other standouts from that 16U group I liked. Haley on the back end. I'm blanking on his first name. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I gotta get to it. Terrible. This is why I write stuff down and put a show sheet together so that I don't have to do this on the fly here. But Ethan Haley, there we go. Flint Powers kid on the back end there. Had a lot of opportunities. Just the puck was on his stick a lot, and opportunities to make plays from the back end. Finney was another one on the back end I liked a lot. I believe an Orchard Lake St. Mary's kid. Remy Finney, there we go. Real nice hands and feet, in rhythm, very fluid with the puck, making plays. Good hustle. He's a little bit light, even at the 16U level, where it was all 16s. But it didn't really hold him back by any means, right? Like I said, the hands and feet were good enough to make plays and make good things happen. Did some nice things with the puck and flashed like a good fast twitch, I'll call it. That's what they say in football anyways, when you got a good first step or first couple of steps and things like that. Finney is one of those kids who's pretty explosive with that first or second stride. I think he said he's a St. Mary's kid. He's actually a U of D kid now that I'm thinking about it, right? Is that right? Yeah. I apologize if I screwed that up. We'll get it right closer to the season as we get to the winter season. Don't mind me. Okay. The other thing I noticed too, and this was in all the games, I noticed it most, I think, in the 16U game, but it holds true across all the games I watched. AAA hockey is just so different. It's an absolute war zone out there sometimes with, the stick, the hacking and whacking behind the play and jawing and face washing in front of the net and bodies flying everywhere. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have an issue with that so long as the refs let a lot of it go. And that's what I mean is I don't have a problem with it if the refs are going to let you play. and do your thing. It wasn't something where, they were calling some of that ticky-tack stuff behind the play, but it can be a major distraction and take you off your game. So that's why I say, like, I don't have a problem with it, because on one hand, you got to be able to play through that stuff. You got to be able to deal with that and keep playing your game. It's just so different than I think what a lot of us see in the high school world, where um, AAA, they kind of let them play on, which is fascinating to me, because a lot of the refs that were on the ice for these games are the same refs that are also doing high school games too. So it's amazing to me. You can call the same game two different ways based on one being AAA and one being high school. So kind of interesting there. Okay, what else did I have here? Another kind of thing that's sticking with me too. There was let me make sure I get his first name right here. Where is he? Nathan Talby, as a Grosse Ile kid, defenseman for the 16U Royal team, and Grosse Ile just keeps popping up now, and the last 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, they've won a boatload of games, 20 plus games, winning the Metro League division, and they've really been dominant in season. But you haven't quite seen those same results at the state level in the state tournament. And you've had a big name here and there, or a dynamic duo in the past. But I feel like this fall of all falls, you're starting to see more Grosse Ile guys getting involved in the MHAs, in the MDHLs. Colton Dworsky was a Team Michigan guy last spring. So you're starting to see these Grosse Ile guys starting to bleed into some of the spring, summer, fall hockey. And I'm wondering if that's going to be indicative, if we're going to see that translate to more winter success. And 20 win seasons, conference, league championships, those are obviously big accomplishments and things to be celebrated. But ultimately, we're all chasing a state title. We're all chasing regional titles. We're all chasing playoff success, right? And like I said, I just keep seeing these Grosse Ile names pile up. You got Talby, like I said, this past weekend. Dworsky, I mentioned at Team Michigan. You got Eric and Adelar Hovis, too. Adelar Hovis is going to be a 3-year guy for Grosse Ile, and he's been a leading scorer for the last 2 seasons. Going to be an upperclassman now as a junior. Younger brother Eric, like I said. So you're just starting to see more and more of these Grosse Ile kids get involved in some of this extra stuff. And I feel like that is going to go a long way and develop and really round these guys out into some really high-level high school hockey players in the winter. And I'm very intrigued by Grosse Ile as we get closer to the season and see how this kind of unfolds. It may, and here's the thing too, is maybe the strength of schedule gets tougher. Maybe they get some of these tough games, non-conference games, and you get a Trenton or a Heartland or a Brother Rice, or you get some of these top 10, top 15 teams on your schedule. And so maybe you don't hit that 20 win mark like you have in the past, but that experience against playing against top teams, and you've got guys that are doing the spring, summer, fall stuff, all of that then builds into playoff success down the line. That to me obviously is far more important. So just a team to watch here as we get closer, because I think the wheels are starting to spin there a little bit, and good things even better things could start to happen there. Not good things. Good things have been happening there for a couple seasons now, like I said. So, okay. Anything else I want to touch on here with the 16s? I think I'll move on here. Let's see. 15s. I don't think I had a lot of notes. There was just one thing in particular I want to touch on with the 15s. I mentioned my conversation with Coach Price there, and just this being a typically tough tournament for MHA as a whole. The 15s are a tough age group too, because it's a limited player pool the younger you go with high school hockey. At the 18U level, you're getting a good amount of top players playing high school hockey. 16U, not as much, but still some. At the 15U level, it's a full-on competition for guys with AAA programs and even some high-end Tier 2 programs as well. And there aren't a lot of freshmen or sophomores playing varsity hockey. Sophomores, there's more, but this is your player pool essentially is older freshmen and younger sophomores for this 15U team. So there's just not a lot of options at your disposal here for some of these teams. That goes for MDHL and MHA as well. You don't see some of these other split season teams doing 15U tournament teams. So, the 15U white team actually had to play up and play in that 16U Tier 2 division of the Kickoff Classic here. And then the 15U black, the Tier 1 team, their stats aren't on the website, but there was one player that really stood out to me in that mix. Well, two, at that level, Elliot Fricano from Forest Hill Central was one that I thought could really hang and really compete at that level and did some nice things and really showed that he belonged competing at that level. So he looked really good to me. And then the goalie, again, let me see if I can pull this up. I forget who the goalie was in the game that I watched. If I can pull this up real quick. It had to have been, I think it was DiCarlo from Stony Creek, the game that I saw. And very much under duress in that game Friday afternoon. Faced a lot of pucks, saw a lot of action. Might not have been the most technically sound, right? Post to post or coming out and challenging shooters and stuff like that. Some of the footwork, I think, can probably be cleaned up and polished. But again, we're talking about 15U prospects here that are still developing, learning, and growing. So I don't expect a lot of things to be nice, neat, and polished at this age level for high school hockey. But the compete level was there. I thought he battled at times, made some big saves, kept him in the game early on. I want to say it was only 1 or 2 to nothing at the halfway point of the one game I watched there. And so I just thought DiCarlo stood out to me, and then, like I said, Fricano as well. Riley Bamberger up front, freshman for Saginaw Heritage there. He's a big-bodied kid. For the 15U age group, he's a big kid. Beckham Winterstein out of Alpena, he's another good-sized kid at this age level. So it should be an interesting group. Like I said, the 15s are always intriguing. And to Coach Price's point about this being one of the toughest tournaments of the fall, this is a tough age group too. All season long, because it's the older guys who have been through it, your Aiden Cooks, your Melox that have been through the MHA program for 2, 3, 4 years now, they get it. They know what to expect. Some of these 15-year-old freshmen, 14-year-old freshmen that are doing it for the first time, it's all new. And so the entire fall season becomes a learning curve, not just the first event, the entire season. So something to just keep in mind here, I think, for both of those young groups, the Team White and Team Black, as the fall season unfolds, that it's not about wins and losses. It's about getting better today than you were yesterday and being better tomorrow than you were today too. So, okay, those are my big takeaways there on the Tier 1 teams. Tier 2, I didn't get to see. I had a good amount of back and forth with some guys and got some good updates on teams. I'd like to actually go back and watch some of these games on Live Barn because, it wasn't just MHA teams. You had West Michigan varsity. You had BRPD. Those are 2 split season high school hockey teams in action there too. So I'm vested on both sides of the face-off there, guys on both sides of the puck. So I really want to go back and maybe check out some of these games with West Michigan varsity and then BRPD as well. West Michigan varsity white and green both took the top 2 spots there in the 16U division. West Michigan varsity, I think that was a good amount of, maybe it was beer. One of them is a lot of like Muskegon area kids and Mona Shores and Reeths Puffer and things like that. At the 18U division, 18U Navy, MHA Navy, sorry to circle back to MHA, I guess you could say won the 18U split division. They went 3-1 on the weekend, split a pair of games with West Michigan varsity, won that second game, and I think, like I said, is kind of the de facto champion of it. They didn't really have champions for the showcase, but I think so. New this year, and I think this is important to mention, is the Tier 2 MHA teams are going to be competing in the split season state tournament, or that's the goal anyways. You got to hit your 20 game minimum count to qualify for states. But the plan this year is for those Tier 2 MHA teams to compete in that Maha State tournament, which is a first. MHA has never done that before. So this is an interesting wrinkle, I think, that the director there, Rick Gadwa, is adding this season to kind of give those Tier 2 teams something additional to play for on top of the development and exposure. To then drop them into the split season mix is interesting, because you're going to get to go against some of these other high school programs like West Michigan, BRPD, Michigan Steel is another one I'm hearing out of the Ann Arbor area. And I think 18U Navy has a real shot to compete and show real well at that top age group, because there's some real talent on that 18U Navy team that, this is kind of what I mean about talking about the 15s earlier. The 18s, you got to cut the roster down to, 4 lines, 6D, and 2 goalies, but there's some tough roster decisions. When you look, Zach LeMay, I heard nothing but glowing things about his performance this past weekend for 18U Navy and how he just dominated the age level at times, the Tier 2 level there. Zach LeMay, another Trenton kid, but 2 goals, 5 points on the weekend, one of the top scorers for Navy. Braylon Rodriguez, Bryce Bjornson, Cooper Aller, a defenseman on the back end I like a lot. Jason Matthews, another big defenseman who moves pucks and does real well on the back end too. Like Gianluca DeSalvo. There's a ton of guys on that blue team or on that Navy team that all could have made cases to be on the red team and could have played and competed and done really well on that red team as well. And that's what I mean, is that 18U level of high school hockey is so saturated with great talent. And, Rick Gadwa has pointed it out on multiple occasions. He said, what did I just see? I think, was it Winterstein? Somebody just made, I just got a message about this, just made a North American League team out of tryouts or out of main camp. It might have been Gavin Winterstein, who he was a Navy kid last year, was a Tier 2 18U kid for MHA, and now he's making a North American League team a year later. And Rick said this is an annual thing. There's a kid off of Navy every single year that goes on and plays high-level junior hockey. So that happens every year. And that's because at the 18U level, there's so much depth and talent that you have a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 team, but it's a lot closer to a 1A and a 1B than people want to think. You get down to 16U, 15U, it becomes a little bit different of a story because, like I said, you just don't have as many resources there. But I mentioned Jason Matthews, Cooper Aller. Those are 2 defensemen I like a lot, and I think those are 2 guys who could be some high-end defensemen as we get closer to the regular season. And then Zach LeMay, he had a great year last year, back for Trenton again. Him, Durbin, I think they add, is it Grandin Eccles to the mix? I think he's a Trenton kid as well. So Trenton is going to be deep offensively, loaded offensively. And I think their top end might be better than a lot of other people's top end too. So it's not just the depth and being able to roll 4 lines and 6D out the door. It's going to be their top guys, their power play guys, are going to be nasty too. So a little bit of a scary incident too. I think it was 18U Navy. A kid got cut. I don't know all the details and kind of how the play transpired, but a kid took a skate to the leg and was bleeding pretty good. Scary moment there. I think it would have been Patterson. And by all accounts, everything I've heard, people jumping into action and being proactive in that situation. Obviously, it's a scary situation. It's one, as a coach, always haunted me, and I was always terrified would happen. Because you don't know how you're going to respond when moments like that hit. And by all accounts, sounds like Jeff Fleming, who's the head coach of MHA Navy, Johnny on the spot, a military guy. He's been through and seen some stuff. But he even said, in my 20, 30 years of coaching, I've never seen anything like this. Kid got caught, was losing a lot of blood. Thankfully, like I said, a guy like Jeff and Coach Brown was there as well. I think a lot of the MHA staff was actually in the rink. We're able to spring into action, call medics, medical personnel, get them on site, get this kid taken care of, and get him to the hospital. I think he ended up having surgery to get things squared away and everything. But obviously a scary moment that could have been a lot scarier had some of these people not just sprung into action the way they did. And take care of the situation. So I did want to mention that too, give a bit of a shout out. Jeff is a guy I know well. John Brown I'm getting to know, having been around MHA this fall a good amount. And yeah, so it's just good. It's good when good people get the opportunity to do good things, get to take care of some people in situations of need like that. So again, a scary moment that could have been a lot scarier had the right people not been in place. So obviously hoping for a speedy recovery there and everybody bounces back and does well. Obviously a scary moment for all involved and anyone that was there too. So wanted to mention that. I won't go into too much detail or particulars. I'll kind of leave it at that. But obviously, like I said, hockey world thinking of you, hoping for a speedy recovery and hoping all goes well. So, okay. I think that was pretty good. I thought this was going to be like a 10-minute show. I thought I was going to have like nothing for it. I didn't have a show sheet or anything prepped, so I thought this was going to be a quick show. It ended up being pretty good here. So we'll wrap things up here from a Kickoff Classic standpoint. MHA teams are back in action, not Labor Day weekend, but the weekend after that. I think some of these teams are going back to Grand Rapids, and then the Tier 1 teams are actually going to Chicago. So that Tier 2 teams in Grand Rapids, you're going to see West Michigan varsity again. You're going to see Michigan Steel that I mentioned. So that one's going to be one I'm going to circle there to pay attention to because of some of the other split season teams that are going to be involved. And I haven't talked a lot of split season on the podcast because it's not something I've paid much attention to in the past. And maybe we can make next episode a split season conversation. Because it's a bit of I don't love split season, but I'm starting to see some of the value in certain split season programs. I think I'll put it that way. Overall, I'm not in love with the split season dynamic, but I do think there's a couple programs who are doing a good job with it and doing it the right way. I still think our top guys need to be in the MHAs and MDHLs of the world and things like that. And we, like I mentioned on the last episode, it needs to be refined. It needs to be retweaked. But I'm starting to see some of the value in some of these other split season programs that are out there. That's not a blanket statement across the board because, like I said, split season, no two split season programs are the same. So we'll talk more of that on the next pod. So probably not next week, but the week after we'll do that. Kind of look back at, I think it's the Howie's Hometown Cup or something like that is the tournament. But okay, cool. Let's see. Until next time. Oh, again, if you've made it this far, I mean, you might as well subscribe to the pod, right? I mean, we're 40 minutes into an episode. So you might as well hit that subscribe button. That way, when we do put out future posts or future pods, you'll get notified and be able to stay up on all things high school hockey. So till next time, skate hard, have fun. I'll see you at the rink soon.